The teacher became worried when the little girl was always late for school and mentioned that she was busy at home with her father. So the teacher decided to follow the father to see what was the reason for the girl's tardiness. Stay tuned to discover what happens next. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories. On a breezy fall morning, young Louise hurried to the classroom door, her steps resounding through the deserted hallway. Her rapid breathing and anxious expression starkly contrasted with the quiet morning atmosphere at school. Pausing briefly at the classroom entrance, she knocked gently, looking downwards. "I'm sorry, Miss Michelle, can I enter?" Her voice was a quiet plea, mixed with hope and apprehension. "You're late once more, Louise," the teacher remarked. It wasn't a new occurrence. Although there was a hint of disapproval, concern was evident in her tone. Louise was an attentive student, yet her frequent delays and evident exhaustion were becoming alarming. The girl offered a vague excuse about home issues, a response that had grown too common of late. Michelle exhaled and instructed the girl to take her place. The classroom was silent, with every other student already focused on their studies, considering class had begun an hour ago. Louise moved to her seat, trying to remain unnoticed, though all eyes momentarily glanced at her. "All right, everyone. Let's review the homework. Have you done the multiplication exercises?" The teacher aimed to redirect the focus to the lesson, to shift attention away from the girl's tardiness. "Yes, Miss Michelle," came the collective, eager reply, indicating their readiness for the task. Everyone except Louise. The girl averted her eyes, her gaze teeming with apprehension at the thought of being blamed. Noticing her unease, Michelle approached her with a blend of annoyance and concern. "Why didn't you complete your homework, dear?" she asked gently yet assertively, trying to probe rather than blame. The girl stuttered a similar excuse as before, again citing home issues. "I couldn't make time for it, and my father was unable to assist me. There was a situation at home." These recurring excuses signaled a deeper issue, and the teacher's concern for Louise's situation deepened by the day. Her protective instincts and curiosity wouldn't allow her to overlook these signs. Louise's persistent lateness, incomplete work, and visible fatigue were more than mere neglect or irresponsibility. Michelle sensed something adverse was happening in the student's life outside school. Driven by her concern and trust, Michelle discussed her observations with the school's counselor. "She constantly arrives late and seems very tired. Her reasons are always about troubles at home or needing to handle something with her dad," the instructor mentioned, clearly worried. The regularity of these delays and the child's evident tiredness were concerning. "Her dad always drops her off at school very late. I wonder why?" The lady pondered, her worry blended with a need to comprehend the situation. The supervisor paid close attention, sharing Michelle's worries. It was apparent that all was not well, yet without further details, acting was challenging. "For now, we can only watch her closely," the supervisor noted. In the classroom, Louise's attention wandered more and more, her thoughts drifting away from her lessons. When Michelle tried to engage her, asking about her morning activities and the reasons behind her consistent lateness, the girl would simply refer to her dad's fatigue. "My dad gets really tired, which is why he's late in bringing me here," she shared, speaking softly, avoiding looking directly at her teacher. The educator grew increasingly convinced that the young girl's excuses hid a deeper issue. Despite her obvious affection for her father, Louise seemed to shield him with her vague responses, heightening the teacher's concern. At one point, unwilling to settle for evasive answers any longer, Michelle addressed Louise directly. "Can you tell me, what do you do at home with your dad?" "Why are you consistently late?" Michelle asked, hoping her genuine tone would prompt the girl to reveal more. Louise paused, biting her lip, clearly struggling with her loyalty to her dad under the weight of the question. "We deal with some issues at home, but he prefers not to discuss it. It leaves him too worn out," she admitted, her response more enigmatic than illuminating. This admission spurred Michelle to deepen her quest to understand what Louise's life was like outside of school. The mention of home issues causing her dad exhaustion was vague, but suggested burdens that might be overwhelming for a child. Michelle's dedication to her students' welfare was steadfast, and she was prepared to do whatever it took to assist Louise, convinced that action was necessary. However, even the most dedicated are susceptible to the trials of life. And suddenly, on an ordinary day, Michelle felt sick, struck by a malaise she couldn't overlook. Identifying the beginning signs of a flu set to be challenging, she reluctantly decided to take a week off from school to avoid spreading illness to the children. This decision was hard-fought. Her dedication to her pupils and her concern for their education during her absence weighed heavily on her. A substitute teacher was called in to fill in during her sick leave. This situation added to Michelle's worries, particularly when she thought about Louise, the student who routinely arrived late. Even while battling the flu, the teacher couldn't stop her thoughts from revolving around the young girl. The mystery of the girl's frequent lateness haunted her, and despite being on leave, she felt the need to take action. She reached out to the substitute teacher daily, eager for updates, but her concerns were always validated. Louise continued to be late. What makes her father bring her to school so late? Michelle wondered aloud, puzzled and troubled by the circumstances. Fueled by a resolve that surpassed her flu-induced weakness, Michelle took a decisive step on the 5th day of her illness. Feeling slightly better, she chose to park her car near the school, blending in as a hidden onlooker, and waited for the students to arrive. By 7:30 a.m., she watched as all the children filed into the school, all but one. Louise's absence became a distressing pattern that seemed to persist. An hour later, at 8:30 a.m., a vehicle drew near and the young girl hopped out. Her goodbye to her father lingered as she dashed towards the school. "Bye, Dad." Acting on a push to learn more, Michelle tailed the father's car, maintaining enough space to avoid raising any suspicions. Her drive led her through the city streets, blending curiosity with a hint of unease. Eventually, she followed him to a secluded area, characterized by modest homes in a noticeable state of disrepair. The journey ended at a dwelling that appeared deserted, a rundown structure that didn't fit in with its environment. Louise's father exited the vehicle and made his way inside the house as though it was part of his regular routine. Michelle couldn't believe what she had stumbled upon. What was a child like Louise doing in a place like this every day? What was the reason for her father bringing her to such a forsaken location before school? The more she pondered, the greater her worry grew for her students' safety. Michelle realized she couldn't just stand by. She felt compelled to act, ready to do whatever it took to ensure Louise's safety. Swayed by her deep concern and resolve, Michelle left her car and moved towards the house with cautious steps, peering through a window. The sight that met her eyes caused her to stop in her tracks, a picture of neglect and desolation. Fighting back her emotions, she entered the house moments later, her heart racing with apprehension. The interior reflected pure neglect, every space filthy and barren, echoing an absence of life for what seemed like eternity. Her footsteps echoed on the squeaky floor, and the atmosphere was heavy with a tangible sense of sorrow. Michelle made her way along the corridor to the rooms, observing dust dancing in the slivers of light that managed to filter through the dirty windows. Every door they opened led to more forgotten, static spaces. Finally, at the end of the hallway, a room differed from the rest. It seemed lived in, like a haven amid disorder. A worn double bed was the centerpiece, with a basin beside it, its clothes arranged to form a temporary cradle where a baby slept, unaware of his surroundings. Beside him, Louise's father rested, so motionless that Michelle momentarily feared the worst. Yet he was merely in a state of deep sleep, the kind that comes from long periods without rest, as though he'd collapsed into sleep as soon as he hit the mattress. It was only the sound of the floor creaking underfoot that startled him awake, shifting from shock to confusion, then to fear. As their eyes locked, he exclaimed, "Who are you?" rousing the baby, whom he quickly scooped up to soothe. "I'm your daughter's teacher, Michelle," she quickly replied to prevent any escalation of the misunderstanding. Holding his son tightly, the man took a few moments to understand her words. The mention of Louise appeared to calm him, and the walls he had built around himself, though invisible, started to crumble. The woman conveyed her concerns about why she was there, including the unusual pattern of Louise's delays. Listening, the man's eyes soon welled up with a mixture of pain and exhaustion. Then he began to weep, his body heaving with each cry. Sitting on the bed, his baby in his lap, through tears, he started to share a tale that left Michelle in stunned silence. A story of a father's drastic efforts to hold his family together through tremendous difficulty. The room, once silent, filled with the man's anguished voice, each word laden with the burden he bore alone. Michelle listened, both horrified and touched, as the true circumstances of Louise and her father came to light. It was a situation far more tragic than she had imagined. Far from being uncaring, the father narrated the devastating loss of his wife during their baby, Ronald's birth. Jobless and without means, he was forced out of their home, relegating him and his children to live in their car for around 2 weeks. That car became their temporary refuge until they stumbled upon the abandoned house. "I'm aware it's wrong since this belongs to someone else, but it's all we have for the moment," he admitted, his voice heavy with sorrow and hopelessness. He managed to find work during the evening as a security officer, leaving his 9-year-old daughter with the hefty task of caring for her newborn brother. The father spent every hour at work worried about the safety of his children in that deserted house, aware of the danger looming due to the ease with which intruders could enter. Each morning was a frantic dash, with him arriving home just in time to send Louise off to school. After picking up a quick breakfast from the bakery, the father and his daughter would start their morning routine of taking care of the youngest child, doing everything from changing diapers to giving baths. Before they knew it, an hour had slipped by and it was time to leave. The long distance to school meant a precious 30 minutes was consumed by the commute, explaining Louise's regular late arrivals. The father's words, echoing fatigue in the daily grind, touched Michelle deeply. The situation of the family depicted a true picture of endurance and affection, yet a stark need for support. Feeling compelled to act, Michelle offered her own home as a haven for the father and his kids. "You can stay with me until we find you a safe home," she said, voice steady amidst the wave of emotions. Her humble abode, with 2 rooms, provided a warm and secure space for them to take refuge temporarily. Anthony, taken aback by such kindness, knelt and wept, overwhelmed with gratitude. Thank you so much for your generosity. I don't know what we would have done without you." For him, Michelle's gesture was more than just accommodation. It symbolized a glimmer of hope, indicating that maybe their unfortunate circumstances were starting to change. In this moment of profound kindness and empathy, Michelle recognized the impact she could have on a family teetering on the edge of despair. For Louise's dad, the benevolence of a once stranger was like the first light after a relentless gloom. Yet the effort didn't end there. The teacher, driven by a strong empathy for the family's plight, knew she couldn't stop at just offering her home temporarily. She felt an obligation and wished for a more enduring effect on their situation. Therefore, she got the school involved. She narrated the entire ordeal to the school board, emphasizing the difficult situation of the little girl, her dad, and the youngest child. The response was immediate and empathetic. Struck by the narrative, the board recognized a chance not only to support a community member, but also to enrich the school atmosphere with individuals of remarkable resilience. Anthony was given a position as a janitor at the school. For him, this was more than employment. It represented a stable future, an opportunity to provide a respectable life for his kids. Overjoyed, he accepted, tearful and thankful for the chance to enhance their own lives. The story of this family and Michelle's initiative sparked a wave of solidarity among the other students' parents, who came together to support the family. A fundraising drive was initiated, collecting kids' clothing, items for infants, food, and other fundamental essentials. The outpouring of support from the community was incredible, with each contribution reflecting a spirit of compassion and a willingness to assist. Utilizing the gifts received alongside earnings from his recent employment, the dad was able to lease a modest yet inviting flat. This marked a fresh start for them, offering a space to live with honor and security. The contributions he got made it possible to furnish his new abode with necessary items, bringing ease and steadiness to his young ones. The positive change in the life of this humble family was extraordinary. Louise, now punctual for school and more attentive in her classes, thrived both in her studies and in connecting with others. The infant, nurtured with affection and care, developed into a joyful and thriving child. And Anthony, who was once overwhelmed by despair, found the strength to keep going through gratitude and hard work. They emerged as a source of inspiration. The teacher Michelle, with her commitment and proactive approach, did much more than just aiding a family. She deepened the connections within the school community, proving that collective efforts can truly impact an individual's life. And for the father and his kids, each day brought new hope, a future shaped by affection, determination, and the unwavering support from their community. If this tale touched your heart, the next video on your screen promises to be just as captivating. Remember to ring the notification bell so you won't miss any of our future videos. Join us for another uplifting narrative.